Mr. Ashish Toshniwal. Mr. Ashish Toshniwal is the co-founder and CEO of YmediaLabs. They are based in Silicon Valley with offices worldwide. The Wall Street Journal has featured them as one of the most innovative companies in the Silicon Valley. Mr. Ashish Toshniwal hails from Kolkata and is an electrical engineering graduate from Purdue University. He has been featured on CNBC, ABC News and Forbes multiple times on how technology will shape the future. Mr. Ashish is a prolific angel investor. Some of his investments include People.ai, Latch, Robinhood and Acrons. He built digital products and experiences in fintech mobile applications, entertainment, wellness, e-commerce and AI. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ashish Toshniwal to share his remarkable contributions and views with us.
Thank you. So at the very outset, I would like to thank Santoshji Muchal, who has invited me, my mother-in-law, Madhushri Muchal, and IMA Indore for inviting me to speak. You know, 2020 is a tipping year for me. I think starting this year, I have spent equal amount of time in US as I did in India. So I moved to US in 2001 for my undergraduate education for engineering. And it's been 19 years, but I'm very proudly still carrying my Indian passport. And you know, Indore is a very special place for me, and it has given a lot of things to me, starting with my wife, Priyanka Muchal, now Toshniwal. And you know, I was talking to her this morning, and she was telling me that, Ashish, don't mess it up. Nobody knows you, but people know me. And my in-laws are also here, so hopefully you guys will cooperate today. So इंदौर की एक बहुत ही खास बात है. लोगों को खाने का शौक ही नहीं, खिलाने का भी बहुत शौक है. I remember the 2 days after my wedding, I came to Indore, and I was fed so much food at such high frequency that I decided in the afternoon, I'm going to take a nap for 3 or 4 hours so that I can take a break from food. So today's topic for me is how India can add $1 trillion using digital technologies. And I would like to start by saying that, you know, after I graduated from Purdue in engineering, I worked in Texas for 3 years, and then I moved to Silicon Valley. And before I started YML, I actually attempted to start 2 other ventures, which did not go very well. But when we started YML, it was at the advent of App Store, the iPhone App Store. And it was all about designing apps and developing technology on App Store. And something unbelievable happened. August 1st, 2010, and it was 2:58 a.m. We designed this app to teach kids ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4, and this was the first time someone leveraged the touch capability on iPad to teach kids. And we got this email, I love what you're doing, thank you, let me know if we can help. And this email has changed the course of my life and the company, YML. So over the past 10 years, we went through a lot of ups and downs, and we created a short video to tell you guys how it all went. As I said, you know, my wife, Priyanka, who's an Indori, she was a big contributor to YML. She worked with me for the first 4 years. So thank you, Indore. Thank you. So I'll start by talking about what is the current landscape of technology inside India. And I want to touch upon how not forming companies can add another $1 trillion and not just a few billion. So if you look at the current landscape, we have, three massive big companies, Paytm, Oyo, Flipkart. You guys have heard of them. And if you look at just the e-commerce landscape in India today, it's $36 billion. And I want to just give you a snapshot of how big things are in the US. And, sorry. In US, just one day alone, the first Monday after Thanksgiving, the sale is $8 billion. I'll give you another example, and in a bit I'll tell you, what the opportunity is for us. So if you look at Swiggy, the Series A investment was $8 million. The return was close to 10x today. DoorDash, which is an American Swiggy, the Series A investment was $17.3 million, and the return was close to 187 times. Now, I want to touch upon what I see as the massive opportunity for India. So these two companies, which is based in a 12-mile radius of where YML is in Silicon Valley, and they both are our clients too. And if you look at Apple, Apple is valued at $1.3 trillion. And Google alone is valued at close to $1 trillion. And what I would love to get your attention to is just imagine if a company like Apple, Google, Microsoft was born in Gurgaon or in Bangalore. That would take us 50% of our journey, which is adding another 1.3 or $1 trillion. I'll give you just few examples of some of the companies in Silicon Valley, and these are massive enterprise software companies, and they have done really well. And this is the scale we are talking. And I feel that India today is ready to build companies which are not just serving India, but serving the whole world. And that, to me, is probably our biggest opportunity today. So just a few companies who have done really well inside India with a global outlook. So if you look at one trend which has served very well to India is the Indian IT export industry. Today, they export close to $137 billion out of $180 billion in revenue. And that has been a big factor of growth for the economy. But if you just look at the sale for enterprise software revenue, just inside India, it's actually very low. And that's why I'm trying to make a point is how big the opportunity is outside India, but building a company inside India and catering to the whole world. So one of our biggest mission at YML is how do we export Silicon Valley to the world? And when I say Silicon Valley, it's not a zip code for us. It's actually a mindset, which is grounded in velocity and innovation. So there are few companies I'll just touch upon quickly here is these are the companies you have never heard of, but I can tell you these are the companies who have a solid chance of becoming a $100 billion company in the future. Most of them are right now based in Silicon Valley. 3 of them I've invested in: Latch, Health Equity, Deserve. And I'll tell you a short story. Credit Karma, the founders of Credit Karma, this was 8 years ago, they came to meet us, and this was, our office was in my dining room back then. And he was like, Ashish, you can take cash, for the work you'll do for us, or take equity. And you cannot imagine what mistake I made that day. I picked cash over equity, And that cash is worth close to $30 million today. Another thing I want to touch upon is how can we actually achieve this dream? I just talked about what the opportunity is and how we can build, companies. And before I do that, I want to show a video. So this is by Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. I'm a big fan of Jeff Bezos, and we'll see what he has to say about India.
This is going to be the Indian century. And I'll make one more prediction for you. In this 21st century, the most important alliance is going to be the alliance between India and the United States. The world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy.
See, I can tell you, Americans have really perfected the art of doing namaste. So, again, I have a 3-point plan for us on how we can add another $2 trillion to our economy. And I want to touch upon a few companies who are actually doing it right. And I am very bullish on them. So this is Zoho, Freshworks, Byju's. Zoho is an enterprise software company. It was bootstrapped, and their revenue is close to $1 billion. And their main market is US. Same with Freshworks. They're close to $100 million in revenue. And the last one, which is very, very impressive, I hope all of you guys have heard of Byju's. They just acquired a company in Silicon Valley to expand into the US markets. The second point I have is, how can Indian origin entrepreneurs who are in Silicon Valley, such as me, partner with entrepreneurs in India to give India that next $1 trillion? And I'll just talk about one story. This is probably the most important picture in the history of technology. I'm sure you have probably not heard of Fairchild. I'm sure you have not heard about the founders of Fairchild, but this is the company which was started in 1957 in Silicon Valley. And the founders and early employees of Fairchild, they left Fairchild to start Intel, which is the foundational company of Silicon Valley, which is the reason Bay Area is called Silicon Valley. And now, if you look at the trend over the past 30 years or 40 years, the early employees or the founders of Intel, they spun off and they started VC firms like Sequoia, Kleiner Perkins, and some of them joined Apple, and Apple had investor back in Kleiner Perkins. So as you can see, this is how an ecosystem is built. And I feel right now India is at the cusp of, that building of great superpower in technology. And hopefully the founders and the early employees of Paytm and Oyo and such companies, will start the next, not just few $1 billion, but $1 trillion opportunity. The next example I have is, if you see the person who's on the right, he's Jerry Yang. He's the founder of Yahoo. He invested in Jack Ma, who's the other guy. He's the founder of Alibaba. He invested in 2007 $1 billion. And that is valued at close to $36 billion today. And if you see the power of Alibaba today, it is the foundational company which is responsible for the growth of China as a manufacturing hub for the whole world. The last one, which is, I feel that we have an opportunity to bring in the cultural shift. And I want to talk about the mistakes I have made over the years and what I've learned over the past 19 years in the US. The first one is, today I want to make a confession. You know, in 2001, when I went to US for my engineering, the biggest reason I went to US was I read somewhere that an engineer in US makes $57,000 after they graduate. It was not for the love for engineering or technology back then. And this is, I feel this is not just true with me, but you know, with a lot of us. And I remember that I had a lab partner, and you know, we were working together in the lab one day. I remember there was an exam of an engineering class. I went to the lab. I was actually arguing with my teacher assistant, hey, you know, how come I got so less grade, and you know, I deserve more and all that stuff. And this was one day after the exam. And my lab partner, I was seeing him that, you know, he was still very busy, very engaged in building the circuit design. And I asked him, you know, Jake, what's going on? Like, exams are over, you're still working on this. And he told me that, Ashish, this was one of my life's dream, to build this toy with this circuit design. And that was such a big lesson for me that, you know, it's not just about the outcome, but it's about the love and the passion for the game. So that was a big lesson, number one. And I feel this is a big cultural shift we need, and it is happening today. The second one is about thinking big and be ambitious. And we heard today, Gadkariji talked about India doesn't lack resource. India has a lot of money. India has a lot of intellect. India has, you know, a lot of great things going for them. But what India is missing today is the vision. And one thing I learned early in the company, that when I started YML in 2009, for me it was all about how do we grow to the next level, and it was less about the difference we are making in the lives of the consumers and also in the lives of the team. And gradually I realized that, you know, creating a vision is so important than just hitting goals. And it was a lot about how do you make the team's vision or the team's mission of their life as part of your big mission. How do you make sure that your team does the best work of their life, you know, in your company? And it was a lot about that. And this was such a big learning, and probably a big reason why we have scaled to 300 people and 6 offices and so on and so forth over the years. And the last one I would say is the integrity and transparency. And I learned this very, very hard way, and I'll give you an example. Early during the formation of the company, I would have a lot of client calls, and you know, I had a habit of how do you delay tough conversations, and you know, so that you don't confront people, and even though it may not be true, so that you can just say, like, for instance, clients would ask, hey, when this will be delivered, I would be like, oh yeah, we are on time, it will be tomorrow, and tomorrow will come, tomorrow will go, and we would miss the deadline. And here's the worst part. The client calls us. We didn't call the client. It was such a big learning that having tough conversation and unpleasant conversation early on so that you can preserve the long-term trust. And I feel that is something, as a nation, you know, we have to learn. And second thing I would say is, you know, lot of times we associate hard work or we associate sacrifice and misery to hard work. And it doesn't have to be that way. And and when I see some of the people in Silicon Valley who are working at our company, and for them, it's about designing the best experience and not necessarily like, it's a job or, making money, though that is very important, but that's very important. That's a big learning. Next one, as Rajat Sharma ji talked about today, that it's not about saying, but doing. So I would like to show a couple of examples of what we do in Silicon Valley. So next one is, this is an example of a healthcare company. They are based in California, and they're rated #2 on LinkedIn as the hottest startup in the US. They've been given the Time Innovation Award. They've been regarded as one of the best companies by Fast Company. And it's a device which controls dosage in medication. And I'll just quickly show you what our work was. And if you look at every pixel, every animation, every interaction, it was extremely thought through on how a consumer is going to land on this and what kind of experience will they have, as they are going through the whole product and, exploring the product and so on and so forth. The last one I have is Universal Music Group. It's the biggest music label in the world. They're based in Hollywood. And the challenge they were facing was, how do they provide a technology so that music artists and their managers can understand where their fans are, whether they are in India, Brazil, New York City, San Francisco. Where are they listening their music on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, so many different channels. And also understanding what's the demographic, age, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to play this. Thank you, and this is the team behind the work, so I want to give them a great round of applause too.